right, looks like we're ready to go. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for October 21st, 2014. For those that have not been to a meeting before, the way things work here is city staff presents on an item, and then after they present, it's initially turned over to the commission for technical questions. Once we're done with our questions, we turn it over to the public for comment. And if you have something to say, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address so we have it for the minutes, and try to keep your comments as close to the subject as possible. Once public commentary is done, we go back to the commission for discussion and a vote. Also, I would ask that people silence their cell phones before the meeting starts, which keeps us from being distracted. And apparently we have 45 minutes to have a quorum today, so let's try to conduct our business in an expedited fashion. Could we call the roll, please?
David Borsak, Ed Bowen.
Here.
Jeffrey Tomes, Thomas Voitek.
Here.
John Hintz, Steve Cummings, Kathleen Propp, Gary Gray.
Here.
Donna Laurie, Robert Weigert.
Here.
Paul Nolan.
Here.
Excellent. Now let's look at the minutes from October 7th. Are there any corrections or things to add to or delete from the minute?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to item number 1, plan development review to allow development of an office retail building at the south intersection of Westtown Avenue and North Washburn Street. Keep in mind we have seen this before, so there's not a lot to talk about, but David will enlighten us.
Okay, this came before you on August 19th. It was withdrawn before it went to the Common Council. There was an easement on the site. One of the conditions of approval was that easement be released. That has a active sanitary line that services Lowe's and other properties. It cannot be released. So the petitioners come forward, amended their site design and their building design. Just to familiarize you with it again, this is the Lowe's site, North Washburn, Westtown Avenue, Highway 41. This is an aerial. You can see here's that big detention facility. There's a multi-tenant building here with a restaurant and a retailer. And then, of course, you have Lowe's. This is just kind of a zoomed in where the Lowe's parking lot abuts the property to enter. And then this is the outlot, and you can see that sanitary easement that runs through, and that is the Algoma Sanitary District, not Oshkosh. So this was the original site plan. You see it had a 3-tenant space, a little bit larger building, and they kind of utilized the site as much as possible. That is being amended now, and I'm sorry for the quality of the image on here. But basically amended where the building is now going to either a 1 or 2 unit building, dropping down to 3,500 square feet. And it is being shifted as far to the east as possible. What this does, this line right here is that sanitary sewer, and there's a 20-foot easement, so 10 feet on each side of that line. Contacted the Algoma Sanitary District. They're okay with parking going over the top of that, but not building. So the building had to be moved further to the east to get out of that easement area, and also drastically reduced in size. This site plan, as revised, still needs 3 base standard modifications. One is for that front yard setback. There's a 25-foot is required. They're requesting 20 feet. The east building setback is required to be 10 feet. They're requesting 5. And the east parking lot setback required to be 10, and they're requesting 1 foot. If you remember the argument we had from the original submittal for the front, 25-foot is the setback. If we look at the design of the site, if we reduce the sidewalk from 8 feet to 5 feet, reduce this rear yard setback from 6 to 5, we can effectively push the entire site down to a 24-foot setback. Still a foot under what's required, but obviously it's the least necessary to make the site function. Also, we felt that pushing it back another 5 feet or 4 feet would provide a little bit more sight line coming from this corner to the properties, especially to the west. With the 2 side yard setbacks, the 5 foot for the building and the 1 foot for the parking, we are in support of that. You have perpetual green space here in the form of stormwater detention, and also at this side of the parking area, the adjacent property and Lowe's has large green space areas that will stay there as long as Lowe's stays. So with the goal of getting all that stuff out of that sanitary easement and making this lot functional and buildable, we would support the 2 base standard modifications to the east side. We are going to be recommending pushing the building or the site to the south by as I had mentioned, the sidewalk and that rear setback to try to get that 24-foot front yard setback rather than the requested 20. Access, if you remember, comes through the Lowe's site only. There would be no access to Westtown. Then they could access North Washburn from that location. They are now providing 18 stalls on the site, which is a reduction from what they had. They're only required to supply 15, so they meet our standards on that. Again, they have a conceptual landscape plan. It's hard to see, but they have sort of shade trees on the north and the south sides, arborvitaes on the south lot line to be a screen of the parking lot and this dumpster enclosure that they have on the south. They have evergreens on the building's south side and west lot line, and shrubs on the basically around the building foundation at all, around all sides except for the east side of the building. Landscaping, obviously, it's going to have to go through site plan review, and the quantity and amount of landscaping will have to be approved at that time. Stormwater is through easement is allowed to be discharged into the Lowe's pond, so stormwater is not an issue. They are going to need an encroachment for the parking lot onto that sanitary easement from the town of Algoma, or from the Algoma Sanitary District. We have talked with them, and we received a letter saying they support the project and would allow that encroachment, but not the building. With parking, they're okay with. They had some other conditions on there, like letting them know when they're going to start construction and that kind of thing. But otherwise, no major issue. The building, substantially the same as what came through last time, although it's reduced. You have the vertical columns to kind of break up the wall mass. You have sort of just placeholder signage bands along the top. No ground sign is being proposed for this site, so it would be all wall signage. And then you have sort of large on the south side, large storefront aluminum curtain glass. And on the north side that faces Westtown, you have a smaller entryway and glass system to give that side also not a blank look. So with that, we are recommending approval of the development plan, of the new development plan, with 4 conditions: that the CSM or other instrument that changes the parcel from an outlot to a buildable lot take place, the base standard modification to allow the building's front setback to be 24 feet and the east side yard setback to be 5, base standard modification for the parking lot's east side yard to be 1 foot, and that all improvements that are located in the sanitary sewer easement receive approval from the Algoma Sanitary District.
Excellent, thank you. Technical questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. Anyone here from the audience to speak to this item today?
Hi.
Come on up.
My name is Eben Johnson. I'm the petitioner. Would you like my address? You have
Yes.
it already. It's 5888 Lake Wind Drive, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 54904. David, if you would assist me here, will you go back to the original proposed drawing and leave it there for a second? I'll ask you to flip forward when I get to that point. What I'm going to ask the committee to consider is, please do consider 2 things. We'll get to the second one in time. The first one is to leave the setback at 20 feet from the lot line. And there's really 5 reasons why I want you to consider this. David has already touched on this. One, it's obvious there's extra green space well in front of the north there. Now that in the future could be turned into a roundabout, I understand that, so it may not always be like that. Also to the east, you have that pond. And then more importantly, to the west, you have quite a bit of extra green space on that lot, 29 feet from the setback, which is because of the sewer easement, but it's going to be some beautiful green space, and I'll make that look pretty when the time comes. So that's the first thing I want you to consider. Second thing, and really more practical, is the buildability of the whole project. I'm constrained on the east, I'm constrained on the west, I'm constrained on the south, and I basically have 4 feet of wiggle room in this whole project. You get an excavator out there and you start digging in the dirt, I might need those 4 feet, but you can still get around that problem. Number 3, and I paid a lot of attention to the aesthetics of this project. This is not a pole building with metal sides. And what I'd hate to see happen is have the front entryway put to the point where I have just limited amount of concrete. Then you're pulling a car up to that concrete parallel and opening a car door. Then you're opening the retail outlet door, and suddenly you really don't have a lot of space in between. Not to mention my green space goes away, my the shrubs, the stone, everything that makes it look pretty. When you walk into a retail or office space, that first impression is the front door. And we're with the going down to that 24-foot setback from the 20, that front door looks like not good. After that, I would like to point out that number 4 on my list of reasons to consider this would be the Holiday Inn Express, just on the other side of the westernmost building that you see there, the Cousins and U.S. Cellular. The Holiday Inn Express is 20 feet from the lot line. Thanks for pointing that out, David. And then I call it 4.5. I did talk to the owner of the building with the Cousins and the U.S. Cellular, and that gentleman, Westtown, what's it called? Oshkosh Westtown LLC, a gentleman by the name of Peter Youngbacher. He was okay with the first plan, and he said, I have no comments. I'm not going to interfere with that. So those are my comments. Now, the last thing, David, if you would, go back to that original plan. And you'll just have to humor me here if you could. But this is what the committee, this is the corner here. So if we go from the corner to what the committee approved, which was 4 foot back from this corner, that line comes like this. Now we'll go to the next one. Now, if you go to the new, let's see here. Oh, this is a bad, isn't it? There's it here. This,
that's the
go to
shadow.
what you're proposing. It's this. I mean, what I'm proposing is a lot more visibility than what you approved just a couple short months ago. So it's more visibility than what you had already approved. So considering those 5 things, I'd really hope that you would reconsider and approve that it stays as I requested.
And you're okay with all the other conditions that are on here?
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for the petitioner as long as he is available in here? Okay, thank you very much.
I have one.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The second one, and maybe this is me being somewhat new to this development business, but when it does go to change, I'll need to have a specific instrument drafted to change the lot from an outlot to a lot status. And I would like the minutes to show that it would be okay for me to use an affidavit of correction to change the outlot to a lot. The difference for me is 10 times in cost. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none, back to the commission for discussion and a vote. Your thoughts on the petitioner desire to?
Well, the basic reason why we pushed it back the 4 feet, or why we're recommending going back the 4 feet, you really don't change any of the landscape area. What you end up doing is reduce this walkway from 8 feet to 5 feet, and this rear yard setback drops down 1 feet to meet code. The real reasoning behind that is 25 is the required setback. The functionality of the lot doesn't change whatsoever. Sidewalk does shrink down 3 feet to try to get to that 25. We're looking for the least modification that's necessary to make it function.
Your thoughts from, yes, Gary?
The applicant mentioned affidavit.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in instead of this certified?
Yeah, well, we have it down as a certified survey map or other instrument.
Okay. Well,
So-
I guess what just for my information, what's the difference? Is there any significant difference between the two?
Well, one's correcting an already developed certified survey map, and one is creating a new certified survey map. They're different instruments.
Okay. Okay.
So, I mean, if what the petitioner had recommended is an acceptable form Through our assessor's office, yeah. That's why we have other instrument in there.
Okay, thank you.
Other thought? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So the wording wouldn't have to be changed in there at all then?
Nope.
Other thoughts on this?
Motion to approve as recommended.
With conditions, as they are? With conditions as they are?
Conditions as they are.
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Is it unanimous?
No, we haven't voted yet.
Okay.
Ellenberger,
Aye.
Bowen,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Weigert,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Moving on to item number 2, conditional use permit and land use review for property located at 2340, 2350 State Road 44.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As stated, this is a conditional use permit and land use review for an existing property within the Universal Business Park here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. There's actually 2 different actions that we're requesting that the Plan Commission look at. The first one is that the petitioner requests confirmation that the proposed land use itself is actually consistent with the City of Oshkosh Universal Business Park restrictions and covenants. And in particular, the Plan Commission is charged with finding that the use itself is considered harmonious and compatible with the existing area. That second one is in more in conjunction with the actual specifics of the building itself, the structure, and that's the approval of the conditional use permit to develop a drive-through restaurant. So again, what we're looking for is 2 different things. Things such as restaurants and things aren't normally allowed within the business park itself, but these particular lots do have a listing in there that says that a use that is consistent and harmonious would be permitted. And the second is that conditional use permit for the drive-through facility in conjunction with that restaurant. So we're going to break it up into 2 different sections here with this report, and then we'll open it up for the rest of the discussion. So as I previously stated, this is the exact site itself. I'll have some other images that'll zoom it out a little bit, but I wanted to start with this up-close one. The subject property is actually one large parcel right now, just under 5 acres, 4.99 acres in size, and is located about a half mile away from U.S. Highway 41. The existing uses of the property are just a mixed commercial office space. So there's actually 2 portions to it. The first half on the left-hand side, or the southwest corner, is the commercial properties that are existing, the buildings, and the northern or northeastern half is the undeveloped space that, as of today, is existing with what this image shows. The first 3 buildings were built in 2004 and 2005, and again, they're just mixed commercial office space. So what this proposal is going to be doing is breaking this parcel up into 2 different pieces. The majority of the parcel is going to be a 3.5 acre size, which will constitute this 4th building that isn't yet developed, and these 3 existing. And then the second lot will be over here, which would be that conditional use for that drive-through restaurant. And that second lot would be about 1.5 acres in size. We'll go out just a little bit here. I want to look at some of the existing land uses in the area. This hashed area on the northern half is the existing industrial park, the Southwest Industrial, while this darker bold line outlines the Universal Business Park and the second piece of the business park over here on the bottom left corner. When we look at some of the existing land uses of the area, we see predominantly industrial uses, a mixed office space, and these darker red spots are the vacant properties in the area. Going out a little bit further to get you an idea of what the Highway 44 corridor looks like. Again, the idea is to make this consistent and harmonious with the surrounding area. So we're looking at the business park and the uses around it. We do have some gas station over here, another one over here, some retail. This larger block over here with, the key is kind of blocking it a little bit, is the Prime Outlets Shopping Center, which this drive used to go into it. Now it has been divided off, so it's making the business park more inclusive. And we are seeing mixed commercial office spaces in there. We have some credit unions, some banks, some other things like that. One thing that we are not seeing on this corridor at all, though, is any sort of restaurant-based or drive-through-based uses. And with the existing zoning, we can see that there is the business park again with the Universal Business Park and the Southwest Industrial Park. And again, the primary uses, as it's stated, is industrial-based and office retail-based. We do have other uses on this corridor that are consistent with the zoning. We do have some mixed-use retail when it comes to, there's a surplus store in the area, there's the Hostess bread use in the area. So we do have some other uses, but again, no sort of restaurants or anything like that. So just going out a little bit more, we can see what this built environment looks like. It is mostly built along that area. We do have some vacant properties along the 4-to-4 corridor, but overall it is fully developed. To date, the Universal Business Park itself has had about 52% of it developed. That's actually 15 individual buildings with multiple tenants in several of the buildings. So it is fairly successful overall, and we're starting to see some growth. With this recent economic hit that happened to the area, we have seen a big decline in growth in the area. This is one of those proposals to help bring some more growth into the area. Let's see. So when we go a little bit more into it, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the existing areas. I didn't have a larger view out, but all of the Highway 41 exit ramps south of Butamore do have existing fast food and restaurant uses on it. Highway 44 is really the only one, if you're heading westbound outside of town, that doesn't have any sort of restaurant or drive-through area. It really can be considered a little food desert when it comes to those fast food uses. Now, there are restaurants within the Prime Outlets area. There are some convenience at the gas stations, and directly across Highway 41. We do have a considerable amount of restaurants on that side. But this stretch along Highway 44 is pretty vacant when it comes to those uses. So there is a little bit of a drive when it comes to that. So we see in the Oshkosh area, we have promoted the Universal Business Park as not having any sort of these uses in there. It's pretty clearly stated that restaurants in the business park proper do not have those, but this adjacent lot does allow it. As I stated before, lots 26 through 32 do have that out stating that a use is appropriate if it's found to be consistent and harmonious with the area. This is one of those uses that we as staff is feeling the Planning Commission has to make the decision on. And there is a precedent that has been set in some of the other industrial parks. This next image actually shows it. This is one of the I-43 Business Center parks up in the Green Bay area. They've chosen to embrace the different uses within their business parks. Now, again, this is not Oshkosh, this is Green Bay, and they have a totally different viewpoint on their standards, but they have seen other things such as hotels, entertainment centers. This is actually a movie theater, and restaurants, and a future development in the commercial retail and restaurant area. So they have found that these are appropriate for their area. And we've placed this regulation stating that we can look at this as something that's appropriate if it's found consistent and harmonious. So when we get a little bit closer into the site design, we're kind of going into the second half of this, looking at the use and the site on a whole. This is the overall large 5-acre site with the proposed drive-through restaurant on the east side. We can see that they'd like to place a future building in there and everything. So we can see that there's substantial landscaping to help buffer that concern and things like that. This is just a conceptual landscaping plan. They're still required to promote other things, but they do have landscaping around the structure itself and on the periphery for that consideration. The applicant, as well as the Taco John's franchise, have expressed their interest in making the site as user-friendly as possible, as well as still being mindful of the other uses in the area. A little bit more into the site design. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. This is the site itself. They have met all of the required setbacks for the structure as well as the parking lot. One additional consideration that will be brought up, and this is required based on our industrial code standards, this sign right here is actually 5 feet inside of the setback. The business park states that it has to be a 25-foot setback for signs. Our industrial, or M3 industrial district standards state that it has to be 30 feet. So that is one thing that will be changed, and that will be addressed during the site plan review process if it goes that far. So the structure itself is 1,749 square feet in size, and it does have a front patio space. The applicant has stated, and the design has stated, that they'll have extensive landscaping around it to help buffer the two different uses. For the parking area itself, they're required to have a minimum of 15 parking stalls with a maximum of 28. They've, as proposed, have designed 20 parking stalls with an additional 3 stalls designated for the RV or trailer parking. They're acknowledging that in this area they'll see some larger larger vehicles, and they want to work with that. All of that is within allowance. We don't have any issues with that. There is a couple things that we're going to need to address, though, and these are part of the conditions at the end. There's actually some access to the site that'll have some issues. When it comes to the location of this first driveway, the state, Wisconsin Department of Transportation requires that driveways be placed directly north of an existing driveway. In this case, I'm going to zoom out to our aerial photo again, and we'll be able to see what this looks like. It's pretty far out, but there's 2 driveways. The site is developed right here. I'm sorry it doesn't show it. But directly across the street, there's an existing site, and the DOT has stated that those driveways have to be across from each other. Well, what this does, and with the existing driveways in the area, and we can see that when I zoom in a little bit further right here, with this existing driveway, we're getting a stacking of these driveways up. They're not meeting our required spacing. The section of Highway 44 is 45 miles an hour, so they're required to have a 230-foot spacing for these driveways. As proposed, this driveway will only be 145 feet away from the western one and only 105 feet away from the eastern one. Again, this is something that the DOT has stated that we are requiring this driveway to be placed directly across the street from the other, so we're kind of stuck in that regard. There was some things that can be done to address this, but it takes substantial amount of work with the DOT and other things. An example being is that this driveway to the eastern or the western development could be shifted over in line with this one. What that does, though, is it forces the existing lot to become into it. Now, this is one lot right now, so again, they could shift this driveway over. That would meet the compliance, but it would only meet the compliance for the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. This area shifts from 35 to 45. So in the event that the drive were to, or the speed were to shift down, it could become, or could come everything else into compliance. And one thing I do want to keep reminding you is that the DOT has stated that the driveways are to be placed where they are. There's really only about a 1 to 2% or 1 to 2 foot variation on where that driveway can be based on their requirements. So if the Plan Commission does feel that that is a concern, a traffic impact analysis could be conducted to show that prior to approval if the Plan Commission feels that's appropriate. There is a second issue, well, not issue, but another concern that'll have to happen. Cross-access agreement will have to be drafted up with this approval. With the adjacent lot, with the splitting off of the lot into 2 separate ones, a cross-access agreement is necessary to just facilitate the transfer of traffic from one driveway to another. Lighting hasn't been submitted with this initial concept. It'll be required through the site plan review process. When we get closer into this one, again, there's another consideration when it comes to the signage. I've listed one concern that we did find. Staff doesn't feel that this is going to be anything that's going to help deter the project. It can easily be shifted into a different location to meet the requirement. It's just something we caught after the staff report was written up, so we wanted to make you guys aware of it. The business park covenants and restrictions do state that 2 ground signs are available. They're only requesting 1. We're well within compliance there. One additional thing, though, is that the building itself, and I'm going to go to, this is what the proposed ground sign is going to look like. It meets all of the requirements of the business park as well as the existing industrial park regulations. And the material here is consistent with what the proposed material on the structure is. It's one requirement that we would have regardless. They've decided to go ahead and meet that requirement already. This is a rendering of what the building's going to look like as proposed. Currently, the Universal Business Park states that only 1 wall sign is allowed per structure. This has helped to keep the light and some of the other concerns at bay. This proposed sign in the front, the Taco John's main front sign, is in compliance with what the requirements are for the Universal Business Park. One additional sign that was requested by the petitioner as well as Taco John's is a large identifier sign on the side. That is in clear violation of the Universal covenants and isn't necessary, so staff is not in support of it as designed. We are listing that as one of the conditions that be removed from the overall design. Again, under normal circumstances, if this was on a different area outside of the business park, a sign such as this would be allowed. But because it is within the business park, the requirements state that it is not allowed. So we are following that rule. When we look at, we can see some of the landscaping around the edge of the building. Again, this is conceptual of what the landscaping is going to look like, but the applicant and petitioner have stated their willingness to landscape it appropriately and actually increase the landscaping in the area to help accommodate this use. They are acknowledging that this is something that's different than the use of the area, but they are hopeful that additional landscaping help mitigate any concerns that other business owners in the area may have with the use that isn't normally consistent. So we're going to go out just a little bit here. I apologize for the fuzziness of this image. These are on the left-hand side is an image of the existing buildings at hand, and then the right is the proposed one. What they've tried to do is line it up fairly well with what limited time they did have. One thing that I did want to state to you guys is that how the buildings do line up. As proposed, the front facades of the structures do line up fairly well. In addition, the front patio area does line up pretty closely to the front sidewalks of the adjacent structures. So we're starting to see a symmetry with what they're trying to do with their design. They're trying to state that in there. One thing that doesn't happen, though, is that there is a difference in materials. The business park doesn't state clearly that the materials from one building to another have to be consistent in style. They just require that the overall aesthetic appeal be consistent. They do have an actual statement in there that any monotony should not be created by like buildings being lined up for too much in a row. That may have been seen if the original development went through with 6 structures all exactly the same. The business park does make that recommendation that there be some variation in the building materials, but still have them overall consistent with the requirements. This building actually, as designed, has met all of those requirements, and I'll go to this rendering again. All the materials on here with the block bottom with the knee wall, the main stone facade with what would the IFAS or stucco-like material on the top is consistent with the business park, and other structures in the area do have that use. The business park states that only 3 colors can be used on a normal case, but more colors are allowed if it's in an accent scenario. So that's why this red is still being permitted. With the 3 primary colors and the red, it still meets the requirements of the area. There was some additional concerns that was brought up with the site plan, and I'm just going to have to go back a couple slides here to show it. With this existing stormwater detention facility here, we would require that they do have easements and restrictions stated, sharing the use of that. They will have to work with the existing property owner to the west to have that happen. One thing that was brought up after the fact, and the petitioner has stated that they're willing to move this dumpster. Currently, as designed, this dumpster is located within that stormwater detention facility, and that is not allowed. They've stated that they'll move it right over it. It's not going to be a problem. We did list that as one of the conditions. Again, besides that depicted stormwater management facility, no formal stormwater management grading or erosion plan has been submitted by the petitioner. This concept approving the conditional use and or finding that the use itself is harmonious. All of those documents are required through the site plan review process, and Department of Public Works will be reviewing those during the site plan review. We don't have the specifics on what the facility is going to be designed as, but we do know that the facility itself is going to be draining into that existing stormwater detention basin. So with that, we are asking that the Plan Commission do 2 actions. The first action is to find that this use is consistent and harmonious with the existing area. And that second one is more detailed into the site plan review process and finding that the proposed use is consistent with Section 3011D of the zoning ordinance with the following conditions. And I'm not going to read them all off. We went through them all. But again, the big ones are the landscaping plan has to be submitted through it. The cross-access agreements have to be provided, one for the adjacent structure, and then the access control variance be permitted as designed. You can, as a Plan Commission, allow the traffic impact analysis to go into greater detail on that if you saw fit. Also, the dumpster location has to be moved, and the stormwater facility has to be properly recorded with the appropriate easements and documents. And then lastly, the variation to the Universal Business Park covenants to allow for the placement of an additional wall sign on that side. Again, we are not approving that, but it is one of the conditions stating that we are not in support of that. So I'll leave it up to the Plan Commission to discuss.
Technical questions. Carl?
Does this require 2 separate motions or 1 motion for both items?
And we'd like 2 separate motions on that.
We would be two, and you'd have to do action A, finding in harmonious first before the CUP would be.
Good question. Other technical questions? Ed, and then Gary.
And the, and I'm maybe just getting muddied here, but the DOT, Section 25104.1 requires that all driveways with posted speed of 45 be spaced 230 feet apart. And so this driveway here would be 105 feet from the next driveway to the west?
This driveway right here, as shown, is 145 feet separating the two. There's one additional driveway just off the page to the east. That's the 105 feet.
That's the 100.
Correct.
That's the 105.
Correct. So
Okay.
there's actually two different driveways here.
So do we have, so the access control variance is granted under city code, and we have the ability to override the DOT's standards? Because it looks, I mean, the DOT requires it to be spaced 230 feet apart. We have the ability to,
I think maybe the confusion is that the Section 25104, that's a city code.
okay,
So we are adjusting the city code to comply with the DOT's request requirement that they be across from each other. This is a DOT permit area of the highway. We will defer to their requirements.
so if we permit it to be spaced 105 feet apart, does the DOT likely come in and say, well, great, you said that, but we don't allow you to do anything within 230 anyway?
The 230 is a city code requirement. That's from a city ordinance. It's not
Oh.
DOT. The section-
Okay, so the only I'm sorry, the only part of the DOT, the only thing the DOT requires is lining it up.
They've reviewed the locations and said they want them across from each other. Is what I'm.
That's correct.
Okay, they're not saying anything about the
Distance.
distance.
Oh.
They don't have any standards on state highways for the distance. They're deferring to us in this instance. Sort of.
I think they reviewed it all as part of the permit issuance.
Okay.
They would have looked
I-
at the situation.
I guess I didn't realize that they'd already reviewed it as part of it. I thought we were just going by whatever their standards were.
No, they reviewed it.
Okay, gotcha.
In this case, the petitioner has requested the permit be taken out, and DOT has given the permit for the driveway location as
Gotcha.
stated.
Okay.
Okay. Gary.
Yes, I got, I guess, 2 or 3, maybe 4 questions, quick ones. First question is, it's my understanding that currently there's one lot, and the lot's going to be divided into 2. Isn't that a subdivision?
Yeah, they'll have to
Don't
come
we
back
have to?
and- They'll have to come back and get a land division for that.
But that's something in the future.
Correct.
Correct.
It seems to me like we would do the subdivision before we do this, but anyhow. Okay, well, regardless. My next question is in regards to two of the conditions, in regards to the driveways. The difference between 3 and 4 in regards to the actual driveway is that the driveway in number 3 is wider than number 4, or vice versa?
There's 2 different access control variances here. I guess I did not explain this very well.
No, I'm sorry, Ben. What I'm asking is, what's the difference between the 2 driveways? And it seems to me like the Class 3 is a smaller width driveway than the driveway mentioned in condition 3.
Well, going back to our image here, I can hopefully explain this for you. The 105 feet is to allow one driveway within 105 feet of a different driveway from a different lot, a different parcel. The access control variance on statement number 4 is to be permitted for the construction of a Class 3 driveway. This is the driveway with the 3 driving lanes on there. The 2 exit, the 1 entrance with the 4-foot rumble strip in the middle. It's not something that's normally allowed within this area, but it has been allowed with other developments consistent with this one. The petitioner has requested that be put in there. So again, there's 2 different variances that are necessary. One is to allow the locations of the driveway.
Okay.
And the second one is to allow the different driveway style as constructed.
There's a quick technical note on that. It's not a Class 3 driveway. It's going to be a little bit, Class 3 is for truck traffic. That's the width for truck traffic. I don't think this fits into the truck traffic, so it's, Steve, what?
Right, it's a Class 2, but it's that three-lane
Lane class.
driveway that, I think you've seen it quite a few times. It just allows the two outs
Yeah,
stacking when you're...
two outgoing and one incoming.
Right,
Correct.
with a rumble strip, yeah.
Okay,
But it's still a Class 2, it's not a truck one, but...
okay.
Class 2 or 3 lanes.
Next question. Am I correct in assuming that the various other conditions and requirements in the covenant will be reviewed by the site plan review committee and for compliance? Because there are some landscaping and some building material items in the covenant that I think should be applied.
That's correct.
Yes, all pieces of the design will go through the site plan review.
And I think on this lot, the convent is very flexible, and basically the building materials can be anything other than probably wood. I think the design personally is kind of strange, but I think all fast food buildings are kind of strange. I guess the next question I have, I guess that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other technical questions? Okay.
Make a motion that we approve action A as written.
We have to.
Wait a minute, we
Been
need
open
public
yet.
comment.
Yeah, we got to open up the public.
Yeah.
I'm with you, but
Yeah. Anybody here from the public speak to this item today?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tom Scharf, 1621 Maricopa Drive. I actually own the land that I'll be selling to Taco John's if the Plan Commission and City Council approve this. And then I will also continue to be the owner of the site, which will be to the west of Taco John's. One thing I felt that was really important was to reach out to all the businesses in the area. So I sent 25 emails out to businesses in the immediate area. 17 responded in favor of the development, 1 was indifferent, and 7 did not respond. I forwarded all those emails to Ben, so he has all of those. And so we felt we got a really good response, and the overwhelming response from these businesses, finally a place to eat near their business. And they really liked the fact that they would have that. Thought it was very important to reach out to the owner directly to the east of the Taco John's site, and they were very much in favor of the development. So we felt we had a very good response that way, and so that's where we are.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Seeing none, one back to the commission. Okay, you're making a motion?
My motion to approve action A as written.
Second?
I do have an email that was brought in by Dave Borsak. If it's okay, I'd like to read it since he's not able to be here today. He did have a chance to review the proposed conditional use and felt that the fast food restaurant is not compatible with adjacent uses in the Universal Business Park. He feels that on both north and south sides of State Road 44, the land use is office and not fast food retail. He's not only tried to keep the covenants to protect the existing property owners, but also future owners. Additionally, he wrote that we as a plan commission are in the process of upgrading our gateways to the community, and the spot zone does not lend itself to that. So he did say that if the BC approves this use, he would strongly suggest that the building be constructed in a manner to look like its immediate neighbors, more consistent with the neighbors, I'm assuming, to the west of the property. And that signage should be limited to just the ground signs and not wall signs allowed at all. One thing I do want to state with that is the wall signs are allowed within the Universal Business Park, just the one sign, not two. But that was a statement brought in by David Borsak.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion for A? Okay, seeing none, call the roll for A. This is a harmonious and consistent use portion.
Hollenberger,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Weigert,
Aye.
Whitehead.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
I move action B with the conditions.
Second?
Been moved, seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve action B, which is the zoning? You seeing none?
We would have one correction on in
With the correction.
correction number, in number 4, with the correction in place of a
yep.
Class 2 driveway,
Class 2
as
driveway.
stated,
All
Cluster
right.
driveway, 3 lanes.
with 3 lanes.
Okay, with that correction, and any discussion, is that accepted? Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, call the roll.
Wallenberger,
Aye.
Owen,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Weigert,
Aye.
Whitehead.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, congratulations. You got through that very nicely. Good job, Ben.
Your quorum has been abandoned.
That's the last business item.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second?
And
Second.
All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
We can't adjourn, we don't have a quorum.
Yeah, we have to keep our meeting.
Well,